happening tonight in Vancouver.
It's about the truth coming out, and it's about, truly honoring those children.
The bodies of over 200 residential school children found in an unmarked grave in BC's interior.
A memorial at this former residential school is growing as people here in Kamloops acknowledge the grisly discovery.
These children were brought into this world and they live. We carry on a legacy for them.
You could think of it sort of like the Granville Island experience.
Vancouver City Council has voted in favor of redesigning Commercial Drive as a pedestrian first corridor. Just ahead what the plan means for residents and businesses in the area.
This is City News everywhere.
It's about the truth coming out, and it's about, truly honoring those children.
For the Kamloops to Shukwapik First Nation, there were always suspicions. But with new ground-penetrating radar, the Interior BC First Nation says they have discovered in an unmarked grave the remains of 215 children. Students of the Kamloops Indian Residential School. The band's leader, Roseanne Casimir, says this could just be the start.
We have not done all our grounds, and we do know that there is still more to be discovered. We know that through the TRC how many missing children there are, and we know that there is still a lot of work.
Kamloops Indian Residential School was the largest in the Indian Affairs residential school system, taking children from as far north as the Yukon and as far east as Alberta. Community members always suspected children there had died and were buried without graves, without records, and without notifying family. Casimir says some of the remains came from children as young as 3 years old.
We know that there's been generations of that information that was shared, but never anything that was ever concrete, and there was never anything that was documented.
At a federal level, Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Carolyn Bennett says support will be there for First Nations hoping to do more of this kind of work.
Communities coast to coast who want to undertake that work in their way, they will have the support of the federal government.
As for next steps, Casimir is reaching out to First Nations communities whose children were sent to the Kamloops Indian Residential School and working to preserve the location of the remains. In Vancouver, Ashley Burr, City News.
A memorial is growing outside the former Kamloops Indian Residential School, some choosing to lay flowers in a show of respect to these children whose lives ended far too soon. Others are bringing cards. Messages written by local school children are being tied to the trees here. Every child matters, reads one. You didn't deserve this, reads another. The people here universal in their devastation and acknowledging the need to recognize what has happened here.
These children were brought into this world and they live. We carry on a legacy for them.
And it's not just here in Kamloops. Memorials are popping up across the country. A group of Indigenous women set up this haunting tribute on the steps of the Vancouver Art Gallery in the heart of the downtown core. 215 pairs of children's shoes and dozens of red roses, dolls, and children's red dresses. Tamara Bell is an artist and organized the Vancouver tribute.
It really resonated with me, and I read last night and then I watched the news and I was so heartbroken that I went to sleep and I was so emotional, because you don't have to be anything, you just have to be a human being to understand that 215 children is a mass grave. I'm a mom and I can't imagine not ever seeing my child because they've gone to school. I can't ever imagine what it would be like, but we're not talking about a few children, we're talking about hundreds of children. And as an artist, I thought I had to do something.
Premier John Horgan is acknowledging this in a statement as well. He writes, "This is a tragedy of unimaginable proportions, and it's a stark example of the violence the Canadian residential school system inflicted upon Indigenous peoples and how the consequences of these atrocities continue to this day." A national Indian residential school crisis line has been set up for former students and anyone else who has been affected by this. Obviously, it's shaking up people here in BC, but it's resonating much further than that. Back here in Kamloops, the community is shaken with news of this tragedy, and it's a story that's resonating not only here in BC, but across Canada and elsewhere around the world. The story has been picked up by the New York Times with the headline reading, "Horrible History, Mass Grave of Indigenous Children Reported in Canada."
The thing about genocide and Canada is that there has been an erasing of our culture and our history, and there has been ongoing genocide for over 500 years, and Canada has not come to terms with it.
For City News in Kamloops, I'm News 1130's Martin McMahon.
When a country is still in the middle of a third wave and we haven't as yet attained a good level of immunity from a population perspective, then it's more difficult for us to tolerate importations.
Ottawa considers lifting mandatory quarantine rules for incoming travelers.
Here's a quick look at the COVID-19 situation in BC. There are 317 new cases across the province tonight, and 2 more people have died in the last day. 292 people are currently in hospital, 79 are in the ICU. More than 3.1 million doses of vaccine have been administered so far. Nearly 63% of people 12 and older have received their first dose. Canada's chief public health officer says the COVID-19 situation has taken a turn for the better in our country over the past month. Dr. Theresa Tam says more than 22 million vaccine doses have been administered, and average case counts are now less than half of what they were during the peak of the third wave last month. Meanwhile, Canada's advisory panel on vaccines now saying that people should be offered a second dose as soon as possible, and priority should be given to high-risk people. The National Advisory Committee on Immunization also issuing new guidance, recommending people who are pregnant, breastfeeding, or with autoimmune conditions be vaccinated against COVID, and that RNA vaccines such as Pfizer and Moderna are preferred for pregnant people. If you have any plans to travel between Richmond and Delta tonight or tomorrow night, take the Alex Fraser Bridge because the Massey Tunnel will be closed. The province will be testing the tunnel's fire suppression system and lane signals between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. both nights. So if you head down Highway 99, you'll see signage and detours pointing you towards the bridge. The only exception is for emergency vehicles, which will still be allowed through the tunnel. Commercial Drive will be getting a makeover to redesign the stretch between Venables and Broadway into a pedestrian-first corridor. Vancouver City Council voting in favor of the redesign Thursday.
You could think of it sort of like the Granville Island experience, where the street is slowed to 30 kilometers an hour and the road is sort of shared with bikes and scooters and buses and cars, and everybody's just going slower, so it's more of a pleasant experience. And the idea is to really turn Commercial Drive from being an arterial through street to really more of a stop and shop kind of street. So really embracing the kind of culture of the drive.
The plan could eventually slow down traffic on the street, widen sidewalks, enhance crosswalks, support public art, and improve on-street parking to support local businesses.
What I would like to see in the immediate would be a reduction in the speed limit, because I think that'll make the singular biggest difference. But again, a lot of this will involve working with the community.
Neither a timeline or a budget has been set. In Vancouver, Miranda Fatour, City News.
Oh, we're losing our minds. Yeah, we're ready for it to be over. We're all getting vaccinated.
It's been another strange year for BC's graduates, and while some have found new ways to celebrate amid the pandemic, the Restart Plan has meant some renewed hope. Coming up, how teens are planning to mark the special occasion.
Officer, how much in fines am I getting again? How much?
COVID quarantines, the government's contentious answer to keep Canadians safe. Since February, travelers returning to Canada have been required to quarantine at federally approved hotels for 3 days at their own expense. But now a federal advisory panel is telling Ottawa to end the practice.
We can anticipate that measures will be adjusted. The date is the piece that I do need some more time to come back to you with.
The recommendation coming from an expert panel on COVID testing. The feds seemingly on side without committing to a timeline. The quarantine rule has been under constant scrutiny over safety concerns at hotels, and many travelers choosing to pay the $3,000 fine or skirt the rules by entering through a U.S. land crossing. But Ottawa under pressure from some provincial leaders to tighten the rules.
I've been demanding a federal strategy to protect our borders for months now. So far, we've seen zero response from the Prime Minister.
As it stands, travelers are required to provide a negative PCR test within 3 days before their flight to Canada and then quarantine at a hotel for up to 3 days before finishing their 14-day quarantine at home. Despite significant strides in vaccine rollouts, Ottawa is still hesitant to loosen rules.
When a country is still in the middle of a third wave and we haven't as yet attained a good level of immunity from a population perspective, then it's more difficult for us to tolerate importations.
Canada's health minister says the issue will likely be discussed with provincial counterparts in the coming week. In Ottawa, Nigel Newlove, City News.
Canada's major airlines are welcoming the report released by a federal advisory panel calling for changes to current travel measures. The National Airlines Council of Canada represents Air Canada, Air Transat, Jazz Aviation, and WestJet. The council explains the recommendations to eliminate mandatory quarantine for fully vaccinated travelers and eliminate the hotel quarantine policy are important factors in having a restart plan for aviation in Canada.
In terms of the path forward, it is clear that all the issues that the panel has addressed and the recommendations the panel has put forward, they all speak directly to achieving a safe restart of travel and tourism, which is absolutely in our overall interests, both economically, but also socially, as people do wish to be able to go see their friends and family and others.
The NACC adds the recommendations align with measures already being implemented by other countries. Canada's Prime Minister is throwing his support behind a movement to unearth the origin of COVID-19. Justin Trudeau says he's supporting U.S.-led efforts to discover the origin of the virus that causes COVID-19. American President Joe Biden says he will likely go public with results of a report he ordered, but China has accused the White House of playing politics and blame shifting. Chinese officials have repeatedly denied accusations that a lab could have been responsible for the pandemic. Celebrating 5 British Columbians who have overcome adversity and who give back to their communities. The Coast Mental Health Courage to Come Back Awards are on this weekend. They recognize courage in 5 categories: addiction, physical rehabilitation, medical, mental health, and youth. But instead of a glitzy gala at the convention center this year, Sportsnet 650's Corey Hirsch will host a half-hour commercial-free broadcast tomorrow.
Bring the tissues, because you can expect to probably have a few tears. You're going to be inspired. You're going to be motivated. You're going to see some people that deserve every accolade they get because of what they've been through and now have turned their lives into helping others.
You can live stream the show from our website, citynews1130.com, beginning tomorrow at 5 p.m.
Some active weather over the last couple of days. Thursday, 10 to as much as 40+ millimeters of rain across the lower mainland. Heavier amounts up against the mountains. Even some active weather early Friday morning. Into the afternoon, though, we got some sunshine, bit of a breeze, kept temperatures down for the most part in the teens. We are looking at warmer air, and away from the coast, we will see temperatures in the 20s. There's a ridge of high pressure building in here, and that's going to divert all this cloud cover farther to the north, up across northern coastal BC and stretching up into Yukon Northwest Territories over the next couple of days. That means sunshine and warming temperatures. 18, that's near the water, to as warm as 22, 23 inland. We'll just see a few clouds into the afternoon on Saturday. Sunday brings a mainly sunny morning, a few clouds developing for the afternoon, becoming partly sunny, a little bit warmer, 19 to 24 degrees. Look at those inland temperatures, 24, 25 degrees potentially all the way through Wednesday. Even along the coast, we'll be pushing 20 degrees as we head into next Thursday and Friday. That's the next chance for any precipitation. That's a check on your weather.
This is a grad dress I bought for prom.
For the second year in a row, high school graduates, friends and family have had to get creative, finding ways to celebrate a massive milestone. But there is a glimmer of hope to salvage some of their special occasion with the province's restart plan.
What's your favorite part about it?
The sleeves. It makes me look like a fairy. That was the whole goal, and it really accomplished that.
Holly Burr is one of the thousands of young people looking forward to graduating in BC. She's already had several festivities, and her ceremony was pre-recorded. Even though she and her friends have been getting creative, the circumstances aren't ideal.
We thought COVID would have cleared up by now, but unfortunately not.
The time frame didn't quite work in Burr's favor, but other grads may be in luck. For instance, New Westminster's school district is cautiously optimistic after BC's restart plan allowed it to make tweaks so families and students could celebrate at a ceremony together.
Only an individual, like the graduate, will walk the stage to shake the principal's hand and receive their diploma, and this family will be present in the theater, and then we'll work through that system in a very coordinated fashion because we can't have multiple graduates in the theater at the same time.
They're not ditching all the usual traditions. In the last few days, young people have been coming in to grab a dress in the hopes of having a small photo shoot outside to mark the occasion.
You know, wear it for their small family group within their house and doing a backyard barbecue, and then they're going to a local park with their friends and, you know, doing photos there with their friends.
Sheila Isaacs is the store manager at the Bridal Gallery in New Westminster and says they've actually seen an increase in students since the restart plan was announced.
Sort of thinking outside of the box to still make sure the grad feels celebrated, because at the end of the day, this is like a time-sensitive event. It's not like a wedding that you can postpone or, you know, change to a different date. The grads of 2021 are only graduating in 2021.
And that's exactly what Burr plans to do. Make the most of it.
Obviously, be COVID safe, but try and go to the beach. Try and make memories. Make a bucket list of stuff you want to do. Get your vaccine. You know, try and be safe and keep your close ones around because, you know, you guys have been stuck with each other for about a year now.
In Richmond, Ria Renouf, City News.
Vancouver's news is always available on the radio with News 1130 or online anytime at citynews1130.com. Your next edition of City News is tonight at 11. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.